Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball podcast, episode 61. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaren. Well, each and every week, and we are going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball.
I am back, baby, from the brink of death. I am back, and I'm glad to be back. I felt very horrible about being ill last week.
Yeah. I know that you push through whatever you can to, do an episode, record an episode.
Mm-hmm.
And when you texted me saying, not going to be able to happen, it's like, okay, that's how I know that Adam is down bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, I could have done it, but it would have had to have been a remote episode, and we would have had to have a guest or my studio would have been the bathroom because I had the stomach flu pretty bad. And I was like, probably shouldn't go over to Jaren's house. I wouldn't be able to make it the length of an episode, and I don't want to give him the stomach flu before Thanksgiving. Like, I'm going to be over this before Thanksgiving, but he would not be. You would have been absolutely ill. No question about it.
I mean, it would have been a good excuse to take off work a couple extra days and watch Feast Week. But also,
if you had it half as bad as I had it, you probably would have been fine. But if you had what I mean, my tummy was doing front flips.
Okay.
Like, it was like, okay. I was like, I wanted to watch more stuff on the weekend, like the not the Purdue game, but the IU Ohio State game. I wanted to watch that, and I was just in bed, like not even asleep, just laying there like in pain. I was like, I can't even like make myself focus on something enough to turn this game on. Like, and
that's fair.
And it helped that it wasn't a game that you would want to watch anyway. So like, I didn't inflict another pain on myself with my eyes. But I'm back, and you're healthy. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was good. I'm off my game. I can't eat as much as I used to be able to.
Mm-hmm.
And so my parents are divorced. So the morning I go to my mom's side of the family, and then evening I go to my dad's. And I know that my parents are divorced, but
I didn't think you were giving me a refresher.
Yeah. So okay. The way you were staring at me, that was very intense.
I was just listening intently, man. Just trying to hear about your Thanksgiving.
Both meals that I had, and they were pretty spaced apart. I didn't finish my plate, and I'm typically go back for seconds, get the sides that I want, like load up on my, like one or two or maybe even three sides that are like absolutely bangers.
Yeah.
First plate you get a little bit of
everything. Yeah, you got to play the hits on the second plate. For sure.
But the second plate you go back for all sides.
Yeah.
And because I'm also not a big turkey guy, didn't finish my first plate at either place, and that was disappointing because then that also meant I was too full for dessert.
Right.
And I could get down on some pumpkin pie.
See, I will always eat dessert. I will, no matter what. I will feel horrible just to throw it down.
I couldn't force myself. I couldn't eat dessert. I couldn't eat dessert at the first place because then I just knew I was chalked for the rest of the day. Like I wouldn't power through. And then I took a to-go container of all the desserts that I wanted for the second place. So it worked out. I still got some dessert, but I didn't get pumpkin pie. That's like,
if you would have let me know that I have one slice of pumpkin pie on a paper plate in my fridge, I could have brought it over for you.
I'll just go to Costco. Like,
dude, those are some gigantic pumpkin pies.
I know.
Those things something at Costco, gigantic, but like those are abnormally large for a pie.
Yeah, like you have to cut like 1 inch. If you cut like a 1 inch piece, that's like edge, the equivalent of just a normal like 8 slice of a normal pie or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
They're like 2 foot in diameter, dang near.
Yeah, I don't even know what they are. There's something.
Now I want to get one so that I can measure it.
Bring it on the next episode. have it here.
Provide it for scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, how was yours?
was good. It was nice because we didn't normally my family and Audrey's family have Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving roughly the same time. Like they'll be like, "Oh, we're
Okay.
starting at 1, we're starting at 2."
Got it.
Okay, well, that's kind of annoying because
Yeah.
then you just miss out on, like, oh, we'll go here for 2 hours and then we'll go to the other place. But it's like, okay, well, if you go there, then you miss part where everyone's just hanging out. You're there for eating, and then the second one, they're either waiting for you. And so
Yeah.
her mom had Thanksgiving on Saturday, which was nice, and then we had
that's
Thanksgiving
nice.
at my parents' on Thanksgiving. Ended up going after my parents over to her dad's house, and it
Makes
was just
sense.
like a not
Just
that
hanging
many
out.
people, just like hanging out, and so it was good. Got to I went and had my first plate. I went back for seconds at my
You also
parents'
hadn't
house.
eaten for like 4 days, probably.
Yeah. I was feeling better finally.
You had plenty of room in your stomach.
So I went back for my second plate, and when I went back for my second plate, I was like, "There's no mashed potatoes. How are there no mashed potatoes?" And then my brother-in-law turns around because he was getting some mashed potatoes. He turns around and he just goes, boom, and slams down a brand new giant, equally as big, thing of mashed
Nice.
potatoes. And I was like, there's like, because I looked at the thing that I thought was the one thing of mashed potatoes, and I was like, I'm taking like what I think is like a fair portion. And when I thought that was all the mashed potatoes, I was like, how much mashed potatoes are people taking? Because there's no way that we went through all of this if
Yeah.
everyone was taking their fair share.
Yeah.
Like they had to have been like full plates of mashed potatoes. But then the second one came out, I was like, okay, we're good then.
Okay.
So had a second plate, lots of green bean casserole. Big green bean casserole guy.
I've had green bean casserole made by quite a few different people, and some have just sucked, but some are absolutely fire.
See, I feel like a bad green bean casserole is still good. Like the low,
that's fair.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but like, I don't know. I actually don't think I had any green bean casserole this year.
I made it for Audrey's family, so we made. Well, I made it, and then I made pumpkin chocolate chip muffins. Not chocolate chip, just pumpkin chocolate
Those
swirl
were also
muffins.
featured on our Twitter account. If you,
That's true. I didn't
follow
ever
us on
post
Twitter.
I didn't ever post the like
after
they are made.
Oh
So
yeah,
I forgot to do that.
It's okay.
But
what you did post though
is
is our power rankings.
I did.
So if you are a major fan, if you're one of our groupies, you probably saw it already on our Instagram, TikTok.
If Elon decided you should see it,
or also true.
Elon decided you should see it, then you're here for the power rankings.
Exactly. Those are posted, and now I'm going to list them off after I talk about Crow's Nest Coffee Roasters. They so graciously offer 15% off every order by using the promo code TSOB. So if you enjoy coffee, go check them out. There's a link in the description of both our audio episode, but also YouTube. So you can go click right there, right to their page, and add some coffee. Me and Adam both love it. We've got a package here. So nice little designed package, well put together. Obviously got the little, like, I call it the sniff hole.
My daughter covered the sniff hole with a sticker.
With a sticker, yes. This one doesn't have a sniff hole.
Well, it does.
It doesn't. It's not exposed. So, yeah, go check them out because they are also the sponsor of our power rankings.
Did I tell you what happened when I've been drinking this specific one, the what's it, medium dark?
Yes.
Medium dark. Ships in the night. I like it a lot. And then I went and I finished my first bag, and didn't want to grind up the beans for the second bag, and so I have like the I don't know what it is, the giant 3-pound dark roast from Costco.
Yep.
And I had that, and I was like, I have always been like a dark roast every time.
Yeah.
But that is like so much darker, and I was like, this might be like too much. This might be too much. And then I switched back, and I was like, this is it. So actually something I drink and I enjoy it, and I need to order more because I'm going to be running out here soon, so I need to order more. using our promo code. So tell us about the rankings, Jaren.
Yes. So at 11, I guess let me back up. These are our week 4 rankings. We did not do week 3, so it will look, I wouldn't say quite a bit different, but there is some shuffling.
More movement than probably normal.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And that's how you know how ill I was, that I couldn't even jump on a call with Jaren and be like, let's crank out these power rankings.
Because that's
like, I can't even do that.
That's something we could have easily done and just still posted.
Yeah.
But at 11 is IU Indy. 10 is Ball State. 9, Evansville. So IU Indy took a bit of a jump down from, they were 8 2 weeks ago. Now 11. Evansville and Ball State just swapped. At 8 is Valpo, who was previously at 11.
So it's like, is that a 1-for-1 swap?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's a 1-for-1 swap, and then the 2 1-for-1 swaps so far. And then Indiana State is at 7. Southern Indiana is at 6. Those are also both 1-for-1 swaps. They were Southern Indiana was 7 last week. Indiana State was 6. At 5 is Purdue Fort Wayne.
Holding strong, man. The Dons.
They have
What's stronger than a Mastodon?
Eric Mulder's shoulders.
But he is Mastodon.
He's not the mascot.
But like Eric Mulder is a Mastodon. You know what I mean?
Okay, I get you.
He embodies the strength of a Mastodon.
True.
For sure.
True. At 4 is Notre Dame, who they were previously 3. 3 is Indiana, who was previously 2. And then jumping up to 2 is Butler.
Shouts to Kyle, who was asking.
Previously 4. Yeah.
Was asking. Could they move to 2?
We leaked it a little bit on our Twitter, but it is official. The number 1, if you're counting down,
up.
Yeah, well, counting up, but like, I guess
up and down at the same time, because like you're counting down to 1, but up on the power rankings.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it is Purdue. So just to recap, number 1 is Purdue, 2 Butler, 3 Indiana, 4 Notre Dame, 5 Purdue Fort Wayne, 6 Southern Indiana, 7 Indiana State, 8 Valpo, 9 Evansville, 10 Ball State, and number 11 IU Indy.
Power rankings have changed probably more this year than like they did last year. I feel like from week to week, like obviously we said we didn't do power rankings week 3, so that it felt like there was probably some movement last week that would have been between IU Indy dropping from 8 to 11. Probably would have stopped along the way or something like that. We just didn't do it because I was dying. But we talked about this. I guess we talked about this 2 weeks ago on our last episode, that we wanted to spend a little bit less time on our kind of recaps on the Indiana schools, just because we wanted to talk about everything that was going to be going on for Feast Week. Well, we didn't do that. And so now we had I will say an incredible Feast Week. I mean, we had an extra tournament with the Players Era thing going on in Vegas. We had a really incredible tournament there. We had Battle for Atlantis. We had all the Baja Mar hoops things. We had Maui, of course, like the quintessential Feast Week thing. Yeah. We had a ton of Feast Week tournaments. And so since we didn't preview them and then recap them the following week, we're just going to talk about them. And so we're just going to kind of go a little bit quicker. We will talk about those games that happened last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess, the ones we were supposed to recap. We'll mention them. We're probably not going to spend a ton of time on them just because you've moved on.
Yeah.
It's fine. But Ball State, they moved down in Torvik. They were at 256. They're now at 271. They went 2-2 in the past 2 weeks. So since our last episode, they are 2-2. They lost to Detroit Mercy 70-59, and then they racked up 2 wins, a 63-61 win over Eastern Kentucky and a 94-57 win over Florida Tech. And those tech schools or those A&M schools always surprise me. I assume they're out there, but I'm just like, any state, you're like, Alabama A&M. Have heard of that school.
And Florida Tech is actually I believe they are Division II.
Yeah, so it's like,
which shout out to them for playing in a tournament or an event with
Chaminade style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With some D1 schools, so good on them. But yes, no, I feel like there's a Tech or an A&M for just
Tech,
about
yeah.
every school,
Where you probably won't
city,
find an A&M is
state.
like Michigan.
I guess probably north of
the Mason-Dixon
the
line.
Mason-Dixon line, yeah.
You're not gonna find any A&Ms. And then so they went their last game. They lost to Richmond, 73-60. So they went 2-1 in the Gulf Coast Showcase. So their game last week was the Detroit Mercy game, and then this week they went 2-1 in the Gulf Coast Showcase. So they played it in a Feast Week MTE, and I mean, ideally, all of our teams would be playing in a Feast Week MTE, but it would be in Indiana, and it would be the state of basketball tournament. But, there'd be a lot of games. This is not an ideal world. I like to see them traveling and playing in tournaments like this. So I'm glad that Ball State did it. And I think 2-1 is a good result for them. Richmond, I'm not sure where they're ranked in Torvik right now, but Richmond's typically like a pretty decent team. Like they're 174 right now. That's
100 spots higher.
Yeah, and right around where Eastern Kentucky was. So like on paper, a game that they should lose, but they did beat Eastern Kentucky by 2. So it's like, can win that game. It's just tournaments are hard when you have 3 games in 3, 4, 5 days, whatever.
Yeah.
The specific tournament is. Tournaments are always harder.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I noticed though, the Gulf Coast Showcase, usually a bracketed tournament. It was a round robin this year. I believe it's because of they just didn't have as many teams. Usually, you'd have 8 for a decent bracket, or 2 or 4.
Yeah,
but having 6, it just makes I think the bracket a little bit harder because how do you decide who gets buys and whatnot? So
I also feel like that would be nice as like a player and a coach because the scout, like the scout is predetermined, right? You don't have to do this, like you don't have to prepare scouts you don't use.
Yeah.
Like it's just like we just have to scout these 3 teams and we're good. We're good. We will just learn the scout. Like we'll hit it hard before the game.
One thing I do want to note with the cards before we move on, Juanse Gorcito, talked about him a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. He is shooting 47% from 3 on pretty decent volumes, 22 of 47. He's really kind of starting to shine as Hill's like true second scorer.
Yeah,
with Mickey not being as consistent so far this season. Mm-hmm. So
and Jerry kind of seeming like he's taken a little bit to adjust to the different role, the different school.
Yeah, and then
because we were kind of wondering who that was going to be.
Yeah, we thought it could be Mickey, could be Peyton, could be Jerry.
Yeah,
but no, Gorcito made his way into the starting lineup too. So pretty exciting to kind of watch that.
Yeah,
but that was all I had on the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to go 2-1. Obviously, you don't want to lose to Florida Tech. But I think both of these, like, even if you go 1-2, it's not bad because they were on paper a lot better than you, but you get 1 win. So that is very good. That's good good morale, and you can feel like you walk out of that MTE successful.
Yeah.
Another team that was very successful in their MTE was Butler. So they went from 86 to 62. That's a huge jump. There really shouldn't have been a jump because they shouldn't have been that low in the first place. You don't lose to Austin P.
Yeah.
You don't lose to Austin P. You don't drop down that low. But last week, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, they beat Merrimack 87-39. Just absolutely, like, holding someone to below 40 points is ridiculous. And then they played in the Arizona tip-off. So this one was just round robin, right? It wasn't, or was it an actual bracket? I can't actually remember. Anyway, the first game they play Northwestern and they win 71-69. So that's obviously a huge win. You get a power conference win right there. And then they played Mississippi State afterwards, who was ranked at the time. They beat them 87-77. So they get a 10-point win against a ranked team in Arizona. And, that's absolutely huge for the Bulldogs. Like, that's why we moved them up to number 2. They, had 2 really great wins. After the Austin Peay game, they have responded incredibly well. Like, absolutely as well as they could have responded.
100%. Like, it's definitely what you want to see as a Bulldog fan.
You could argue they don't lose to Austin Peay. They don't win these games.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's definitely that argument there because we don't know what would happen.
But I mean, I'm saying that clearly lit a fire underneath the team, and Thad Matta, that like, hey, what's going on? Like, this is not who we are. And they've played just really well and really solid since then. And I think that if you're looking at like a turning point on the season, obviously it's a long season. The Big East has been doing some absolutely baffling things so far. But if you're looking at a turning point on the season, I think at the end of the season, you're going to look and be like, oh, we made the tournament. Like, we didn't miss the tournament because we lost to Austin Peay. We made the tournament because we lost to Austin Peay and responded.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I look at it.
And to go back, it was bracketed.
It was bracketed.
It was a 4-team bracketed, yeah.
So who is the team that they didn't get?
UNLV.
Okay. So they played the 2 teams they wanted to get, and they got 2 wins. They got the 2 best wins they possibly could have gotten.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Really excited for what they're going to be able to do. One thing I was digging through analytics today because that's where my mind wanders to sometimes. But Evan Mia, which we used a little bit back in the spring for the NCAA tournament, has a really cool, it says opponent adjusted, like a column.
Okay.
And it kind of factors, how well do teams play against good opponents versus how well do they play against bad opponents? And they're 22nd in the nation in opponent adjusted play on like leaning towards better opponents, which means that they play better against better opponents and worse against weak opponents. So makes sense. They didn't play well against Austin Peay, one of the weaker opponents they've played. But for reference, UConn, they're second, but in the opposite scenario. So like they're on the other end where they suck against strong teams, but are dominant against teams that suck. To me, this like something that flagged my mind because the Big East is tough. It's a grueler. It is historically one of, if not the best conference in college basketball.
Yeah, typically.
So there's a lot of tough opponents, which means, they're going to probably play well against some of these opponents, which like we know, or we believe, I guess, that they will anyway. But just seeing this kind of, tracked in a way, I think it's like fun.
It's like quantifying the way that they're playing it, right? It's like saying like, oh, they're not just like playing well, like they're responding when the pressure's turned up.
Yep.
Which is good.
Yep.
I mean, this obviously doesn't erase the Austin Peay loss because that's going to be a stain on their resume. Like when we believe that they're going to get in a tournament, like when they get in a tournament, they're going to be deciding, are they going to be a 7 seed or an 8 seed? They're going to be like an 8 seed because they lost to Austin Peay, right?
And really what this means is we need to be rooting on Austin Peay to win every game the rest of the season.
Literally.
Increase that quad standing because I believe at the time it was a quad 4 loss.
Yeah.
So get that up to a quad 3 loss at minimum.
Rooting for the quad 3s.
Yeah. I think quad 4 to quad 2 is a drastic jump.
That's a bit too far.
I think that's out of the question, but if we can get that up to a quad 3, so let's go Austin Peay. Want to talk about Evansville?
Yeah, they went up quite a bit here from the last time we talked about them. They went from 254th all the way up to 238th in Bart Torvik. They went 2-1, and this is including they went up even with the loss to Ohio State. They lost to Ohio State 80-30. Let's just not talk about that anymore. And then they won against Green Bay 98-81, and then they beat Campbell 66-53. Do you know Campbell's mascot?
Is it a can of soup?
No, it's the Fighting Camels.
Oh, okay.
Also just as interesting.
Yeah.
That's a can of soup.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's good. We've talked about this team needing to put together two halves.
Yep.
And we didn't see that against Ohio State. It's been hard to find for this team, so it's nice to get 2 games in the win column.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things too that I was looking at was another thing that Evan Mia has is kill shots, which is a kill shot is just a 10 or more point run. So, 10-0 run or larger. They are one of the worst teams in the country in regards to kill shots or giving up kill shots.
Yeah.
So they've given up a total of 7 10 or more point runs
this season.
Yeah, and just over once a game, you can count on a team to go on a 10 or more point run. Granted, they did play Ohio State, who I believe there were probably several. So it's not a 1-for-1 per se. It is by all means an average.
The law of averages or something.
Yeah. But I think that's one of the things that has been kind of hurting them this season. If they can limit that, just keeping teams from going on runs like that, I do think that their season will start to shape up because they're a good team. They've just had disappointing results thus far. Other than this week getting two big wins is nice, but
yeah, I think it's going to be important to see them avoid that, whether it's getting defensive stops or just hitting their shots, man. Like they just need to hit some shots. You want to talk about our next team? I'll let you lead with this one.
Indiana. They went down in Torvik over the last 2 weeks. They were 29th. They are now 44th. They went 2-2. They had a win over UNCG, which we were there. Got to talk to Connor Onion, obviously a friend of mine, a fan of the show. Did an interview with him. But then also got to meet Robbie Hummel.
Yeah,
that was
cool.
Pretty awesome. They lost to Louisville, 89-61. Excuse me, they got slaughtered by Louisville, 89-61.
That still might be too nice. Still might be too generous.
Decimated. Then they lost to Gonzaga, 89-73. Was a better game, not a great game. Then they won over Providence, 89-73. Apparently, the winning team in Battle for Atlantis
just likes to whoever scores
89.
It's like the
race to 89.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
So yeah, they went 2-2. Got a pretty decent win by beating Providence. They definitely underperformed against North Carolina Greensboro. They should have. The spread was like 27. They won by 11. So not great. And then the Louisville and Gonzaga games, the
games were different.
It's like the Monstars were on the plane with them, and they didn't get the ball back until before the Providence game.
Okay, so here's my thing about this whole thing is like the Gonzaga game at halftime, you're like, okay, like we're down, but we're in this, right? Like Indiana is in this. And then the second half happened and it was just completely gone.
They got like within 12 at one point, 14 maybe. So it's like, okay, they can do this.
That should be like the worst of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe.
It was like, okay, they can do this. They can make it happen. They lost by 16.
But it was also worse than a 16-point loss.
Yeah.
And it was worse than a 28-point loss to Louisville.
Yeah.
Like Indiana should have lost by 40 to Louisville, and they should have lost probably by 25 to Gonzaga.
Yeah.
At least. And the way Louisville's playing, seems like that loss is going to age really well.
I believe so.
The Gonzaga loss will age really well because it's Gonzaga. I mean, they're going to be good. They're going to make the NCAA tournament. They absolutely decimated.
They'll be a 3 seed at worst.
You lost by fewer points than Baylor lost, but it's not even the score of these games that matters to me because I think Providence is going to suck. I just think they're going to be terrible this year. So, like,
Okay.
you had to win that one.
Yeah.
But I think the way you lost to Louisville and Gonzaga is the problem. Yes, it's terrible you didn't pick up like a signature win, but if you win 12 games in the conference, you'll probably make the tournament.
Yeah.
Like, you'll probably be fine, but it's just the complete like no-show effort across the board that is really concerning to me. And it's like as soon as that Louisville game went south, it was the firewoods and people were back. You know, that whole discourse started again. However many 4-5 games in, whatever they were at that point, but it was just a really, really disappointing performance by Indiana for sure. It's the like you just watch it and you're like, I don't even want to watch. And you're like, who are we gonna have to play? West Virginia, and then West Virginia beats Gonzaga, and you're like, oh, now we have to play Gonzaga. Like now they can somehow figure it out.
That we really wanted to play.
This is you actually have a chance now. Like you thought you had to win to get it like a chance at a signature win. It's like, oh no, now you can get your signature win, and then they just completely blew it. So, you know, stinks, but they need to figure a lot out. And they don't have a single other good opportunity at a win this season other than in the Big Ten. So
Yep.
Mbako's good. I can say that. He's great. He's a dog.
Yeah.
Need other players to follow to play how he played against Gonzaga all the time.
You're right. Yeah.
You know, just people to care, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not gonna get into all the backstory about everything that people want to talk about. I'm not getting into that. Let's just talk about Indiana State. They went up. We have a live score update. They did just win 87-71 over Tarleton State. But backing up, they went down in KenPom. There it is. I did it. Like I ripped the wrong.
Indiana State went down in Torvik.
There we go.
They were 208. They are now 234.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And Bart Torvik, the service that we used. They won over Chicago State. I mean, everyone has won over Chicago State, so you got to do that. 97-61 win. Then they lost to Southern Indiana, 87-77. Then they lost to Arkansas State, 86-81. That was the first game that they had in the Baha Mar hoops. I don't remember which Baha Mar they were in. I didn't write it down, and I should have. Then they beat Iona 83-80, and then they today, just minutes ago, beat Tarleton State 87-71 in a game that was probably performance-wise their best, probably their best team performance. So coming out of the tournament, I think ending in the best spot that you can without winning all 3 games, because they've started to look better in every game and have some momentum because they jump into conference play.
It was the Nassau Baha Mar Hoops Nassau championship.
Sweet.
Not the Bahamas championship.
You know, they just had to name them almost the same thing with long names.
Yeah, just different location.
But they've got some good things to build on for sure after the Indiana State loss was kind of deflating because the Indiana State loss to Southern Indiana was kind of deflating because of the performance that they put out. I mean, they looked like they didn't want to be out there, and Southern Indiana looked like they were hungry and just controlled the thing. So
yeah, I didn't check the stats because the game just ended.
Right.
But a guy that I'm paying attention to, Josiah Legree, his volume in terms of minutes is pretty low. He played quite a bit against Arkansas State and Iona, and he absolutely balled out.
Yeah.
But as of before the Tarleton State game, he was the best player all around in terms of individual player rating. According to Evan Mia, he had a 1.56 player rating. He was the only player with a positive defensive performance rating on their roster. Obviously, Samaj Teal is positive on the offensive side,
right,
being their leading scorer. But his defensive rating was in the negative. And for reference, the 6 key Indiana State players last year, right? They all had above a 3.24 all last season.
Wow.
So like triple,
Yeah.
double,
No kidding.
double at least in terms of individual play. And obviously, like they all went on to much larger schools and are playing like several of them have above like a 5 at this point.
Yeah, and it's
in their current
right, and that's just for reference, not like an app. It's not an apples to apples thing, obviously.
Yeah. Just I wanted to give that reference because, it's just people who are Indiana State fans remember watching the team last year versus this year, and so, just wanted to call that out. But he's a guy. I think he had 5 points against Tarleton State, but he didn't. He's only played handful of games, he missed quite a few games. So just a guy that I'm kind of eyeballing as a freshman guard. So all in on him seeing more minutes on the court.
You and me both. So good on them for going 2-1. I mean, that's huge. Let's talk about IU Indy. They went down in Horovik. They went from 346 to 351. They went 2-3. Since the last time we talked, they lost to Iowa State 87-52. Iowa State might be a pretty good team,
They're all right.
I've heard about them before. Then they lost. Then they went out and played Coastal Carolina. Lost 71-57. Then they lost to South Carolina State 72-62. And then they had that was their MTE.
Those two games were it was the Alabama A&M. Like invitational.
Yeah, and then they beat Alabama A&M 88-83. So Paul Casaro gets his very first Division I win. His very first win as a Division I head coach over a Division I team. I have not crunched the numbers on if he has beaten a Division I team when he was at UIndy. I didn't check into that, but this is obviously a milestone for him and the team, so that's awesome. And then their last thing that they did, they beat Trinity Christian 106-49, and a lot of it was on the back of Paul Zelinskis, because he is just a scoring behemoth, dude.
Yeah.
Dropped 32 points in their win over Alabama A&M. He celebrated his 100th career point.
1000th career point.
1000th career point. Yeah, he also probably scored in these 5 games well over 100 points.
Yeah.
So he did celebrate that too.
Well, okay, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a good showing for him, and I think that Alabama A&M win. I mean, they're a comparable team in the Torvik rankings. Looking at them, like we said, IU Indy is 351, Alabama A&M is 355, Coastal Carolina is 275, and South Carolina State is 305. So, pretty significant jumps between those. So, good win for them, and we're proud of Coach for getting that.
Yeah. Notre Dame took an unfortunate drop in the Torvik ranking.
Yeah.
They were 65. They are now 73. And it's unfortunate, not because it's 8 spots, not that much. It's unfortunate that they dropped, period. There's a pretty good reason why. We'll talk about that here momentarily, but they did go 1-4 over the last 2 weeks. They won over North Dakota 75-58, and they lost to Elon 84-77. That was prior to the Players era, correct? They played 3 games in the Players era.
Yes.
So they lost during the Players era. They lost to Rutgers 85-84 in overtime. They lost to Houston 65-54. They lost to Creighton 80-76. Losing to Rutgers, obviously Rutgers is a really good team. Losing by 1, they probably shouldn't have, and we'll talk about that here in a moment.
Oh my God.
Houston, impressive. 11 points. That's they were in it. And Houston, as we all know, is probably one of the best teams in the country.
Usually.
usually one of the best teams in the country. Yeah.
This year's is looking
they're a
rough.
little down this year.
They're already like 3 losses already.
Yeah.
They don't take 3 losses till
February.
February.
Yeah.
March.
Yeah. And then they lost to Creighton, who Creighton is probably a top 3 team in the Big East. And by probably, I mean...
Maybe. I mean...
It depends
No one
on-
wants to be at the top of the Big East, apparently.
Yeah, so still 4-point loss there. Close games in the Players Era Festival. But Adam, break the unfortunate news to me.
The GOAT, Marcus Burton,
My GOAT,
goes down the first minute in the game against Rutgers. He like goes up for a shot or something. A Rutgers player lands on top of his knees, and he's like, maybe it wasn't the first minute. But
very early in the game.
Yeah, very early
in the game.
He goes down and he's like hobbling, trying to get up the court. Like he's still trying to move on it, and they pull him out. He comes back, ice on his knees. He doesn't go back in. They say he's going to be out for a couple of weeks with a non-season ending knee injury.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like could be a strained ligament. It could be anything.
Yeah.
I mean, strain, pull, anything in your knee. Anytime a big lands on your knee, you're probably cooked.
Especially when you're that small.
Yeah. So I mean, thank God he's not done
out for the season. Yeah.
Yeah. So you look at those 3, like they lose to Elon. That should not have happened. Like that sucks. That's going to be like a Austin P type stain on the team.
Yep.
And so you're like, how are they going to bounce back from that? All 3 of these results, I would argue, are wins with Marcus Burton.
100%.
Like not even
Rutgers. They don't even
go
to overtime.
They don't go to. I mean, obviously, if they beat Rutgers, they don't play Houston and they don't play Creighton. But if they don't go to overtime with Rutgers because they should have beat them. They should have won that game. I mean, they should have won the game. What was it? Someone, I don't remember who it was, who fouled when they were tied.
It was a freshman, I believe.
Yeah, and I don't even want to throw him out there. Yeah, I don't even want to throw him out there. It's just an unfortunate situation.
Just lost track of where they were in the game.
Yeah, with how much time was left and what the score was. So they were tied. They fell. They send Rutgers to the line, and then Matalako, God bless this man, the most.
He put the team on his back.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
Pulled some Reggie Miller, dropped 9 points in 30 seconds, and had a perfect shot to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it just rimmed out. And so they lose that game. And against 2, and that was without their best player, against 2 top 5 picks.
Yeah.
With Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper.
Yep.
So an incredible showing. Should have won that. And then lose to Rutgers. I mean, or lose to Houston. Expected them to lose to Houston, but fought the whole way. And then same thing to Creighton, man. Just unfortunate because they could have won this thing. They could have won the whole thing.
Yeah.
If you make it past Rutgers and you see on the bracket, you're like, oh, Houston lost. we might be in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just very unfortunate that the injury cost them to go 4 losses extended their losing streak to 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Obviously, the injury didn't play a factor into the Elon game, but
then Purdue Fort Wayne, they went up in Torvik ranking. They were 152. They are now 146. They did go 2-2. They lost to Penn State 102-89. They beat Drexel 87-81. They lost to Radford 69-56. And they beat Texas A&M Commerce 77-57.
Radford hates Indiana teams.
Yeah.
I mean, the Dons are, you don't lose to Radford, you come out really, really well. But a good win over Texas A&M Commerce, good win over Drexel.
Yeah.
Good showing against Penn State, really.
Yeah, that was going into their crib. Or did they play in Philly? Was that game in Philly?
I It was at
in Happy
whatever. What's it? The Bryce Jordan Center? No,
Bryce
that's
Jordan.
not Bryce. Is that Bryce? Do they play in Bryce Jordan? I will research this. I will pull this up. But it was in College Station? No, Happy Valley. Happy Valley.
College Station
is A&M.
Texas A&M, yeah. But still, a 13-point loss to a Penn State team that's pretty good. They, obviously much higher skill. I mean, Purdue Fort Wayne is a low major, and Penn State is a high major.
Yeah.
Like there's mid majors in between. So there are 3 gaps in terms of what you would consider these programs. And to show out like that, I think definitely drew or will continue to draw a lot of attention to the Dons, rightfully so, because they deserve it. They, I think this just validated us in our conversations and in everyone's conversations that they're going to win the Horizon this year. And I think it's a good battle test for the Horizon League Championship. They can make a run and make the NCAA tournament. So
yeah, I mean, no one has scored more on Penn State than Purdue Fort Wayne did.
Oh yeah, that's
so. I mean, they have one loss, Penn State, and it was Clemson, and Clemson only scored 75. Purdue Fort Wayne dropped 89 on them. That feels really good, and that's you would have loved to have had that game, but they don't need it. Like they obviously is not a moral victory here, but like, hey, we could have won this game. Like we were in this game for 30-35 minutes is as moral victory as you can get from there.
Yep.
Let's talk about their sister school down in West Lafayette. Purdue went up from 14th to 11th. They lost at Marquette. Marquette played really well at home. They beat them 76-58. Then they beat Marshall at home. That was 80-45. And then they went out to San Diego and they played NC State. So that was a Final Four rematch. They won 71-61. That was a good game. And then they beat Ole Miss 80-78, which completes the Indiana over Mississippi sweep of the weekend, which we love to see, with Butler beating Mississippi State by 10, I think, and then they beat Ole Miss by 2. And it late in the game, it was not looking like it was going to be a 2-point Purdue victory. It was coming down the stretch, and Ole Miss was just hitting everything.
Yep.
And then Purdue rattled off a kill shot out of nowhere, and Miles Colvin won on the game. Like that was it.
Yeah. Definitely was nervous a little bit, especially when Braden pulled up and missed that fadeaway mid-range. And then Colvin just out of nowhere catches it, puts it up. GG's.
Every coach I've ever had in my entire life would have been screaming because all that Ole Miss had to do was box out.
Yep.
Like, box out.
Yeah.
How many times has a coach said box out in their life? They're just screaming into a void. Good for him.
I do have a Purdue free throw for you, though.
Okay.
So in terms of five-man lineups, which lineup do you think is better from a metric standpoint? I'm going to give you 2 lineups.
Okay.
Colvin, Heidi, PKR, Lawyer, Braden Smith. Okay. That's one lineup. Second lineup, Wilberg, Kari Harris, PKR, Lawyer, Smith. Of those 2 lineups, which one do you think is all around the best?
Well, the instinct is to say Colvin, Heidi, Kaufman, Wren, Lawyer, Smith, because that's what the eye test tells me, which means it's probably the other one, but I'm going to stick with the Colvin and Heidi one.
It is actually the Wilberg Kari Harris lineup. The lineup rating for the Berg Harris lineup is 52.2 versus 20.4. It's almost double in terms of which one is better.
That just seems so wrong. Watching their games, that is just like, that can't be true. You know what I mean?
This is a minimum 45 possessions. So
crazy.
There is equal.
You know what? Maybe, but against a high major team, I'm taking the Heidi
Colvin
Colvin
lineup,
lineup for sure. And like no knock against Berg and Jakari Harris. Obviously we saw Jakari Harris go nuclear this year. But I have been on the Heidi and Colvin train early, and I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
But no rim protector with
PKR
Jacobson out.
Oh, Jacob. Yeah.
And obviously losing Zach Edey. Let's talk about Southern Indiana. We got 2 teams left. We're encroaching on an hour here, so we want to get to the other 49 and the rest of Feast Week. So they went up from 308 to 286 in Torvik. They did not play anything this week, really, other than on Monday they had a game. So they won over South Dakota, which is a really good win, 92-83. That was a really, really good win for Southern Indiana. And then they followed that up with another really good win over Indiana State, 87-77. So that was really cool. Jalen Randall is 5th in the OVC in scoring. And, I think now they're getting people back from injury. This team is going to unlock another level.
Yeah.
Which just makes me so much more mad that they cannot make the NCAA tournament, because this team would be able to make really push somebody for 40 minutes because of how freakishly athletic they are and how many weapons they have. You got Washington coming off the bench, just can cook you.
Yeah. They're also shooting. They're 12th in the nation in 3-point shooting, by the way.
Good.
Little sneaky stat in there. They're shooting 40.8% as a team, which much credit to Milky for starting to find his shot more.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, they're about to start cooking, I think. They've got some conference games coming up. So
right, they jump in. Did they jump into them?
I think this week
next week.
I believe so. Yeah, they play Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
It was OVC, so.
Yeah, so I mean they're definitely looking better than they're looking better than they were at the start of the season. But they looked good at the start of the season. They just had close losses, and I was like, do not give me another season all these close losses.
Yeah.
Sneaky stat, low volume. Jack Campion, 66% from 3 this year.
Yep.
That's he doesn't take a lot of them, but when he takes them, he makes them, man. And I mean, if Jack Campion is going to take a shot, I want it to be that pull up mid range for sure from the free throw. But let him take some more threes, man. Get that 3-point percentage down to the 40s.
Yeah,
taking some money.
Yes, brew. Let the homies know.
Let him shoot. Valpo, they went up from 281, huge jump to 254. They did that with 3 wins and 1 closer loss than I think was supposed to be.
Yeah.
They beat Lindenwood 77-64. They beat Eastern Illinois 81-53, and they beat Northern Illinois 87-82, and then they lost to DePaul 89-70. So that was at the DePaul, I don't know what it was called, the DePaul Classic or DePaul. It was a DePaul MTE. DePaul was hosting, and Valpo was hosting. I don't know how they decided who hosted, but Valpo hosted Eastern Illinois and Northern Illinois, and then they went to DePaul. So they were all in this MTE together. Obviously, these are teams that are in the same vicinity.
Yeah.
Because Valpo is close to Chicago, and so is Eastern and Northern Illinois. So nice to see that they got to play some games close to home and at home, and then really played well. And I think part of that is because Cooper Schwieger is Cooper Schwiegering again, and was not doing that earlier this season. He's shooting 20% from 3, but he's starting to get his numbers back. He's starting to get those double doubles back and play how we thought he was going to as the MVC freshman of the year last year.
Yeah, for sure. Here's a little Indiana stat for you. Valpo is one of 6 Indiana schools in the top 50 in free throw percentage. They're 7th at 81.6.
They're 7th in the country?
In the country. I believe that is number 2 in the state of Indiana. I believe Butler is slightly higher.
But
Let's
go.
Yeah. play basketball in Indiana. You shoot the three and you shoot free throws.
Hopefully well.
Hopefully well. And so far, at least 6 schools are showing out, especially Valpo. But that is all I have. Do you want to tell us who your Jimmy Chitwood Player of the Week is?
Yeah, Jimmy Chitwood. I mean, there were a couple of candidates here. Like, I really wanted to. If I was dead set that if Notre Dame won the first game, they didn't have to do anything else. If they won the first game, Matalako was locked in at Chitwood.
Had to be. Yeah.
Someone could have scored literally 100 points in a game, and I'm like, I don't care. They didn't do it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Matalako was locked in, and yeah, he was a locko for it, and then that didn't happen, unfortunately. So some wrestling around with some good wins, but no one had a bigger week than Butler. So Jimmy Chitwood for this week goes to Ja Telfer of Butler. Man, I mean, he was incredible against Northwestern. 23 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. He was 7 of 7 from the free throw. Important in Indiana, like we talked about.
Yep.
And then against Ole Miss, he has 24 points. He goes 4 of 7 from 3. And that's back-to-back days. Plays 38 minutes in both. And rightfully so deserved less prestigious award than the Jimmy Chitwood, but he was the Arizona tip-off MVP. So shouts to Ja Telfer for being just embodying Jimmy Chitwood this week.
Yeah, for sure. Did you see that clip of him defending the Ole Miss player that was like 30 pounds heavier than him?
Yes.
And he just
insane.
Ja just doesn't budge. He just puts his body out there just to.
He looked like it didn't even look like he was like leaning to brace himself. It just looked like he was standing.
Yeah.
And the guy was like full on
trying to shoulder bump through him
and just
to dribble to the rim.
Didn't even he didn't even lean backwards. He did not take like a small step. He was just solid as a rock. That was enough to win Chitwood alone. That was
dude was just a brick wall. He's just so strong.
Yeah, it was. There are people like that, man, and they are anomalies, and he is one, and I am so glad that he is on our side.
Yes.
So let's talk about the Indiana games to be aware of next week, before we get into feast week, and then we'll kind of spend the rest of the time there. But you did pick a game this week, right?
Yeah.
Just in case you didn't, you can pick one now.
Yeah, I got it. I have a guess the game ready.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of conference play that starts, and not everyone starts conference play. I don't think the Big East starts until the new year. I think they typically wait until January, so we won't see Butler starting conference play, but they do have a game that I want to highlight before we talk about the conferences
Butler
and
does
stuff.
Actually play before the new year.
They do, right?
2 games.
Is it right before? They start right before New Year's?
18th and 21st.
Okay. Butler plays at Houston, and at the time of writing this, it was number 4 Houston. They're 13.5 point dogs when today, when I pulled the line. I don't think that's going to hold. And Houston has not impressed me, really. I mean, they have not been the Houston that we know. And I think that if that line is that high, I'm taking Butler to cover because, that
we
that's
just
crazy.
saw Notre Dame
within that number.
Yeah, within that number, and
without their best player,
have already established that we think Butler is better than Notre Dame. So,
yeah. What else?
IU Indy versus Green Bay. It's a 2.5 point underdog game for the Jags, but it is our first look at Horizon League play in the Corsaro era, in the IU Indy era. So really excited to kind of see them play against a comparable opponent. They've played some tough opponents, and their record so far has been kind of what you'd expect based on how teams are ranked at the grand scale. So that'll be good to take the momentum that they have and kind of flip the script on Green Bay.
Um, let's talk about some of the conference plays because, like, Purdue, and more
I
conference
just
play.
did.
I know. I was
I
sorry.
just did.
I was going to say high major conference play.
Got it. So like,
Just Purdue
and Notre Dame,
and Notre Dame. And Notre Dame.
right?
Yeah,
Syracuse
Notre Dame,
didn't
their
leave
second
the
game.
ACC.
Notre Dame plays Syracuse. You got to win one of these. I mean, they're favored against Georgia, and then they're dogs to Georgia, and then they're favored against Syracuse for Notre Dame. You got to win one. If you win two, like, you're trying to win as many games as humanly possible before Marcus Burton comes back.
Yes.
Because every game that you win that you're not supposed to win when he's out, just puts you in a position to just like have some wiggle room when he comes back. And I don't want to discount the team because they showed that they can play with the best of them. If they can continue to play how they were without him, they can win both of these games.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, they're going on the road to Georgia, and then they're playing at home to Syracuse. So that Georgia game is going to be pretty tough, but I think that they can pull it off. And then Purdue, they go to Penn State. They need to avenge their sister school, Purdue Fort Wayne. They're 1-point favorites there, and then they're 6.5-point favorites at home against Maryland. Trey Kaufman-Renn, Derek Queen, gonna be cinema.
Yeah,
gonna be very, very fun. Yeah,
must watch basketball.
Gonna be super cool. Any other games you want to talk about?
All of them, but no, I think that pretty much covers it. And I was wrong earlier. I said USI plays Southern Illinois as an OVC game. Southern Illinois is in the Missouri Valley, so
that's what I thought.
There's Valley. It's the Valley Conference.
You know what? If you would have just said they play a Valley game, you couldn't be wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You couldn't be wrong.
But I did want to correct
Ross
myself.
Valley.
Did want to correct myself there before the people come at me.
Before the receipts.
Yeah. So let's talk about last week, the MTEs.
Yeah. Let's talk about Atlantis first, just because we had a team in Atlantis.
Yep. So like we talked about, Indiana was decimated by Louisville. West Virginia squeaked it out over Gonzaga. Tucker DeVries is still Tucker DeVries.
Yeah, I mean,
at the higher level.
The thing that kills me about I was watching this game.
Yep.
Very heavily focused on this game, and the announcers were like it was like the end of the game, right? Yeah, it was like the end of the game, and I don't remember the guy's name for West Virginia, but he was like taking the last second shots because they went to overtime, right? And then they crushed them in overtime.
Yeah.
That he was like taking all the shots, and I was like, why on earth is the ball not in Tucker's hands? Like, why is he not taking these shots? And then the commentators were like talking. Basically, it just felt like they didn't know who Tucker DeVries was.
Yeah.
Like, I've watched him just absolutely crush people's hopes at the end of games far too many times.
Yep.
Like, the ball, if I'm the coach and also his dad, the ball would be in his hands. And then it was in overtime, and it worked out just perfectly for them.
Yep. So that was the first kind of set of games, and Providence lost to Oklahoma by 2. And then Arizona beat, right? Arizona? It's so small.
Yeah, Arizona beat Davidson 104-71.
Davidson. So those are pretty much what you'd expect from those games. Then Louisville played West Virginia in the next round, beat West Virginia by 9. Arizona lost to Oklahoma by 5. Didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah, the Arizona,
better.
They're below 500 right now.
Yeah.
Did not see that coming.
It's interesting. And then I guess the next would be the championship game. We'll talk about the third place through losers bracket here in a second. But championship game, Louisville lost to Oklahoma by 5. That game quite literally could have gone either way. Third place game, Arizona lost to West Virginia. So another back-to-back losses for Arizona. Not what you'd expect. Then the rest of the losers bracket, we talked about it. Indiana lost to Gonzaga. Providence, Davidson, lost to Davidson. Gonzaga went on to be the 5th place team over Davidson by just smacking them. They were mad. And Indiana beat Providence.
Hear me out. Okay. Spin zone. IU beat Providence by 16.
Okay.
Oklahoma won the tournament, but beat Providence by 2. My team is better than your team.
Indiana won.
Just saying. Although that wouldn't really work because my team is better than your team. Is like I beat a team that beat you. But I mean, according to the rules of the transitive rule that we use all the time, it might be.
Well, but then
we call the Louisville and the West Virginia. We call those flukes, right? We call the Louisville. We call those flukes.
Yeah.
Not copium, just flukes.
Yeah. Okay, so Maui, the winner was Auburn,
which was not surprising that Auburn won. Like when you heard the if before the tournament starts, I tell you Auburn wins. You're not surprised.
No, that's believable.
Like, yeah, that seems like one. You're like, oh yeah,
one of 2 teams that I thought would have been playing in the championship.
Man,
to see who
you're
wins.
like Auburn over UConn in overtime. You're like, that was crazy. And you're like, no. And you're like, oh, Auburn over
Michigan State.
Yeah, maybe Michigan State. No,
Auburn over Memphis, who is just Memphis is just. They're something else. There's something else. But
that's the way to put it. I mean,
let's backtrack. So Auburn beat Memphis by 24? No, 14 in the championship.
Yeah.
For Memphis to get there, they beat UConn by 2. They then played the winner of Michigan State over Colorado, which was Michigan State. They beat Michigan State by 8. And then went on to play Auburn. Auburn beat Iowa State by 2. Okay. That's respectable. North Carolina beat Dayton by 2. Okay. Close game. Dayton's a pretty good team. Auburn then beat North Carolina. And then they beat Memphis. So it's just like Auburn was a dominant force.
Yeah,
this
dude.
tournament.
No kidding. And the crazy thing is that Memphis had the second, like Auburn had the toughest path because they had to play a ranked Iowa State team and then a ranked North Carolina team, and then they're like, oh, Memphis somehow actually probably the 3rd best team really in this tournament is what it's probably gonna shape up to be, because I think that they will be ranked. I don't know what the matchup between Memphis and North Carolina would have been, but. Tough path. I mean, going through UConn, tough on paper. Going through Michigan State, I don't care what their record is. They're always hard. It's always a hard out. But Auburn is just on a really, really good tear right now. Just almost fight your teammates on a plane, and you'll come together, man.
Yeah.
You'll come together. Bruce Pearl was probably instigating that. To try
spark some fire.
We'll be stronger for it.
Yeah.
You gonna let him say that? You gonna let him say that? Come on.
And then the 3rd place game, Michigan State beat North Carolina, 94-91. So they just ran up the score. Losers bracket, UConn played Colorado. UConn lost.
Colorado.
Yeah.
So UConn, if you wanted to win a game in Maui, all you need to do is add the NAIA Player of the Year from Indiana. Not that hard. I mean,
yeah, that's the way I see it.
Come on.
And then Iowa State beat Dayton. Colorado lost to Iowa State by a lot. 7th place game, UConn's 3rd game of the tournament. They got smoked.
Right.
By Dayton. It was an 18-point game.
Yeah.
So, UConn went 0-3, and Dan Hurley has now said that he will never play a 3-game MTE. He'll never play 3 back-to-back-to-back games He'll only moving forward schedule home and homes.
Home and homes or
and-
marquee, like
Yeah.
non-con,
Yeah.
like neutral sites,
Yep. So
which is crazy. Let's talk about the first game because this was the game, right? Okay, so every single game on the first day went down to the wire. Did they all go to OT except Michigan State, Colorado?
yes,
Yeah, it was like
I believe so.
the best day of Maui.
Yeah,
Like
ever.
you were like, oh my God, like
Mhm.
this is incredible. And you just hope that it doesn't like set up for like bad matchups because sometimes that happens. Like it's gonna be
Yeah.
like you get something crazy and then like a team who plays really well just like used all their juice. That didn't really happen. But everyone goes to overtime and Dan Hurley had to be, he's always been crazy on the sideline, but he literally had to be like physically restrained
Yeah.
by his assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like had to be physically restrained, and it's like from like fighting the refs over. He was going nuts over the Liam McNeely over the back call, right?
Yep.
And so then it was a foul on Liam McNeely. So then Memphis is going down and shooting two, and then he gets a tech, and they're shooting two more. So then it was a tie game to down 4.
Yeah.
And like that actually cost them the game. Like, the foul didn't cost them the game because they lost by 2, but the technical foul actually did cost that they lost. You can argue they shouldn't have been in that spot, but like they were in that spot and they lost the game because he couldn't control himself and had to get a technical in the literal worst time he could possibly get a tech.
Yeah.
He's just unhinged, man. He was unhinged in the next game too. He was unhinged in the game against Colorado.
He lost full for sure.
And it was like on Thanksgiving, because after this on Thanksgiving, like with my family, it's got some Purdue fans in the family, and so like it was like Christmas.
Yeah.
Seeing Dan Hurley lose 3 and just be a nuisance on the sideline because you saw it in the championship game last year, like he's the opposite of Matt Painter.
Yep.
Like in his demeanor, like completely. So it's tough. They're gonna be unranked.
Yeah.
Like they're going to be unranked, which is crazy because I think, remember 2 seasons ago, North Carolina was preseason number 1. UConn wasn't preseason number 1, but then they went to PK 85 and they lost to Indiana and they went unranked and then missed the tournament.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to miss the tournament, but they are doo-doo water on defense right now. They're like something. I saw a stat. I'm going to see if I can pull it up really quick, but like if you can like cuz these analytics like have last year's data in. But if you sort from like the start of the season, they're like almost 200th in defense or something. Like it's crazy.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna just do a quick recap of the Players Era Festival. Players Era Festival was the NIL tournament that took place in Vegas. There were 2 round robin type style events that then determined your seeding. So it was like a group stage. Determined your seeding and who you would play in the ranking games. So there was Alabama, Houston, Notre Dame, Rutgers on one side.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama beat Houston, Rutgers beat Notre Dame. In the next game, Alabama beat Rutgers, Houston played Notre Dame. Those games were like predetermined. They knew that that's how that would be. Then on the other side, that was the Impact tournament. The Power tournament was Oregon beating Texas A&M, San Diego State beating Creighton. So those are the 4 teams. And then Creighton lost to Texas A&M, and Oregon beat San Diego State. Because of the number of wins, it then was Oregon and Alabama playing in the championship game, where Oregon beat Alabama by 2. The third place game was San Diego State, Houston. Fifth place game was San Diego State winning by 3. Fifth place was A&M over Rutgers, and then 7th place was Creighton over Notre Dame. So on paper, Notre Dame came in last, but again, they were playing without their best player, and we've already discussed that
Right.
they probably would have won all of those games.
Right. They would have been in it over. They would have been in it probably over Alabama. Because
Probably. No,
right?
not necessarily.
Don't you think?
It would have been over Rutgers for sure.
But if they had Marcus Burton, they would have beaten Rutgers and they would have beaten Houston.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, I don't know how that would have. I don't know how that would have like worked out if the teams
I guess I don't know
score
because
margin,
probably. That would be my guess.
The way it was, only 2 teams won both their games on both groups kind of brackets. Did you were you pulling up that?
I did. They are, if you start at the beginning of the season, they are the 11th ranked team on offense and 193rd on defense.
Yikes.
Which is bad.
Yes.
A lot of football schools in this Players Era tournament. The winning team got
like $2 million in NIL, right?
$1.5 million for their players in NIL, and I don't know how they divvy that up.
Right.
But I think every team in it got $1 million.
Okay.
And then like they got additional money. First got a bigger chunk, and then second and third got some as well. So that was really good. Really good win for San Diego State. Like even if Houston is like in a down year this year because they've taken more losses by this point in time than they normally do, it's still a really good win. It's not like Houston's gonna fall off the face of the earth.
And San Diego State's a team I really like.
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan. Just the way they play fast down your throat. They're gonna shoot a million shots.
Houston needs to figure out some offense.
Yeah. Then Baha Mar was St. John's, Baylor, Tennessee, Virginia. Tennessee-Virginia game, they scored 106 total points. The Baylor game and the Baylor-St. John's game, both teams scored 98 and 99. So those teams individually almost outscored the entire Tennessee-Virginia game. Makes sense. Virginia and Tennessee, both relentless on defense. They don't want you to take a lot of shots. So that was probably a much more boring game.
Yeah.
If you were flipping between or I guess going from one game into the other. Then Tennessee won over Baylor, 77-62. St. John's beat Virginia by like 25. What other ones do we want to make sure to highlight? Because we are getting close on time. I'd love to talk about all of them, and maybe we'll.
I don't know. I think the only one that I really want to touch on is like the Charleston Classic was good because we got to see like Drake. It just moved.
Yeah, my bad.
You're good.
Backspacing things. And
Drake beat Miami. Miami's like on a 4-game losing streak or something right now. They beat Miami. Then they beat Florida Atlantic. So they just hate Florida. And then they beat Vandy. So Drake goes out and wins. And, they hire, I can't even remember his name at the time right now, but they hire the dude who won the last 2 or 3 D2 national championships. And they're not going to miss a step in the Valley. So they're just going to be a menace. Probably be up there to win the Valley again. That was really the only one other than... in
the Acrisure Classic, St. Mary's...
That was the other one that I wanted to talk about.
USC by like 40. USC scored 36.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about that one because Arizona State beat St. Mary's, and Bashir Jihad was instrumental in both of those. So a former
Shouts out to Jihad.
Yeah, former Indiana player. I guess Indiana college player, played at Ball State if you don't remember. And then the other thing is Kansas beat Duke in Vegas. They had I don't know, it was just like a one-off. There was like a mid-major game as well. They played in Vegas. Kansas won 75-72, and then surprising absolutely no one, Hunter Dickinson kicked somebody in the head.
Yeah.
And got ejected. And no one was...
Cooper Flagg, right?
No, it wasn't Cooper Flagg. I don't remember who it was. But he kicked a Duke player in the face. And they were like going for a rebound and they came to the floor, but he clearly kicked him in the face on purpose. Like it was non-basketball play, like flagrant 2, gets ejected, rightfully so.
Thought it was going to cost Kansas the game.
Yeah, and then they still won.
Yeah,
they still won.
Yep.
So,
all right, let's
cheaters still win.
I guess something like that. So this week, our games of the week and the other 49. Monday is Chicago State at St. Thomas.
Hey.
St. Thomas are 19-point favorites. That's 8 p.m. on Monday. Chicago State 0-9. Wild number of games to have played so far, but they play like 100 games a season.
Yeah, I mean,
they're still looking.
Well,
for
they're
their
in
first
the they're in the NEC this year, so
they're in a conference.
Yeah, they're in the NEC, man.
So still looking for their first win.
Make Chicago State again. Make Chicago State again. Tuesday, our game of the day is Ole Miss at Louisville. This is important to us because Ole Miss just lost a close one to Purdue, and Louisville smoked Indiana. So it's like you can look at this and be like, hey, maybe Indiana and Purdue would go somewhere around this. Who knows?
Yeah.
So Louisville's 3.5-point favorites. That's Tuesday at 9 p.m.
Wednesday at 9:15 p.m. Auburn at Duke. Duke are 4.5-point favorites. The number one team according to some versus the Torvik number one team.
And some include me because I think Auburn is the best team in the country right now.
Yep. So Auburn and then Duke is the Torvik number one team. So that'll be a fun game to be kind of a litmus test for both teams, really, and for the nation.
The next game is on Thursday. Xavier, and to be fair, I wrote this before the game happened today. Xavier did just win by 3 against South Carolina State, who is currently 4-5. Anyway, Xavier at TCU. TCU is favored by 4. That's at 8 p.m. I picked this because it's the Big 12 Big East battle, I believe. So, just thought that was notable.
Yeah. Friday, we have Illinois at Northwestern. Northwestern are 1.5-point dogs. That is 9 p.m. It's the neighbors. We're having an in-state matchup. So
yeah, our equivalent podcast in Illinois is talking about this. Like, we got an in-state matchup this week, guys.
Yep.
Saturday, Gonzaga is playing Kentucky. Gonzaga's 3.5-point favorites. That's at 10 p.m. and it's not at Gonzaga. It's somewhere else, just in the city, in Washington. So it's like a semi-home game for Gonzaga. So that's the game that Cal scheduled that he's not playing in. I guess he wouldn't be playing it, that he's not coaching in.
Yeah. Then Sunday, to wrap up the week, A&M at Texas Tech. Texas Tech are 0.5-point favorites, so it's going to be a close one, which is also another in-state matchup for Texas. So our Texas equivalent podcast.
The state of football. They're definitely called the state of football down there.
Yeah.
They're like, why are we even talking about basketball at this point?
Yeah. All right. Guess the game.
You are 0-3.
0-3. Adam's 1-2. No.
2-1.
2-1. 2-1. First one that I screwed up.
Who went first?
I don't. Just what's your clue?
No, wait. I went first last time because I gave you my clue and you didn't get it, and then you gave me your clue and I got it. Because I remember that. Okay. So you go first this time.
All right. So my guess the game this week is Barbie sees a panther on the Sunbelt.
Barbie sees a panther on the Sunbelt. Barbie. My Sunbelt team knowledge is lacking at the time.
I believe only one of these teams is in the Sunbelt, but
okay. Panthers.
So Barbie sees is in reference to one of the teams. Panther on the Sunbelt in reference to the other team.
Barbie sees like Santa Barbara. Is it? I can't think of a Sun Belt team. I'm just gonna go Panthers. Panthers. I don't know. I'm just gonna say UC Santa Barbara versus JMU.
Jamie or the Dukes.
I knew they were the Dukes. I just couldn't
Panther on the Sun Belt is the Georgia State Panthers.
I did not know that they were the Panthers.
I picked them because they played Ball State earlier this season in the Max Sun Belt Challenge. And
I
then
remember
Barbie
that.
C's is Kennesaw. I just changed the person in the tense.
Yeah,
Kennesaw
that would have
State.
those dots would have never connected.
That's fair. That's fair. Just like the marquee at De Lafayette. So Kennesaw State at Georgia State. That is Friday, December 4th at 7 p.m.
All right.
Give me one in the win column. Or no, it's one in the loss column for you. Dang it.
I'll take the win.
No.
Take the win.
No,
All right.
no.
Last week I said you're gonna get one.
Okay.
You're gonna get this one, and if you don't, I'm sorry. You should get this one. So my guess the game of the week. The Horny Hoedown in the Rocky Mountains.
The Rocky Mountains, Tennessee Volunteers? No. Horny, so like
Tennessee's in the Smoky Mountains.
yeah, I realized that. It is it Colorado State?
Colorado State at Colorado.
Let's go.
December 7th at 8 p.m. The Buffs and the Rams
Yep.
both got horns.
Yep.
The Horny Hoedown in the Rocky Mountains. Make sure you check it out on the 7th at 8 p.m., baby.
Put me in the win column.
That game is in Boulder, I believe. So you're on the board now. 1 and 3, and I'm
2 and 4.
2 and 2.
2
Come
and
on
2.
now.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Math's not my strong suit.
One-time math major, folks.
All right. Well, that I believe is our show for this week.
Yeah, next week we'll be talking about some
Conference matchups.
conference games, man. Oh, I love conference. But we need to break it up a little bit. There needs to be give me like a February, give me a Max Sunbelt challenge for every team here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. But be sure to follow us on YouTube if you don't already. Hit the like and subscribe button. Ring that bell so you get notified every time we go live or post. Adam posts reels every day. So
I try.
Or he at least tries. So
Unless I'm sick.
Yeah, true. So check us out there. Also, if you don't, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoy the show. Share it with a friend. All of our social media channels are always in the episode description. You can check us out on social media. But with that, the clock is showing quadruple zeros. So it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball podcast. We will see you next week. And remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.